Hello Army, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome, you picked the perfect time to show up, because today we are talking about something that has been living rent-free in my head ever since the Hooligan MV dropped. And I promise you, by the end of this video, it's going to be living rent-free in yours too. Because here's the thing. When the Ararang era began, we all knew it was going to be big. We knew BTS was coming back with everything they had. We knew after nearly 4 years of waiting, after military service, after solo eras and individual growth and all of that time apart, we knew that when they came back together, it was going to hit differently. And it has. Every single piece of this comeback has hit differently. The Gwangwoman concert. The Netflix live event. The documentary. The album itself. All of it has been extraordinary. But then the Hooligan MV dropped. And something shifted. Because the Hooligan MV is not just extraordinary in the way that a great music video is extraordinary. It's extraordinary in the way that something genuinely significant is extraordinary. The kind of thing that makes you stop mid-watch and go wait, what is happening right now? Who are these people in this MV? Why does this feel so different from anything I've seen before? And the more you look into it, the more you realize that what Jungkook and the team built around this song is operating on a level that deserves a full, serious conversation. Which is exactly what we're going to have today. So sit down. Get comfortable. Because we are going all the way in on the Hooligan MV, on Jungkook's artistic standard in 2026, and on the two extraordinary women who were cast alongside him, a world-class supermodel who made history as the first Asian global spokesperson for L'Oreal, and a sword dance champion who won first place at the World Martial Arts Olympia in 2017. Let's get into it. To understand why the Hooligan MV lands the way it does, you first need to understand where it sits within the Ararang album as a whole. Ararang is BTS's fifth studio album, released on March 20, 2026. It was their first full group album in nearly 4 years, made during 2 intense months in Los Angeles, where all 7 members lived together for the first time since 2019. They went through more than 100 songs in that process before narrowing it down to 14. Every single track on that album earned its place. Every song went through a selection process that was serious, that was rigorous, that was uncompromising. And Hooligan, with its dark, confrontational, cinematic energy, earned its place specifically because it demanded a visual world that could match it. A visual world that wouldn't flinch. A visual world built to the same standard as the music itself. And that visual world is exactly what was built. But what makes it remarkable is not just the aesthetics, as stunning as those are. What makes it remarkable is the casting. Because the two women brought into the Hooligan MV are not there for decoration. They are not background collaborators added to give the MV a certain look. They are there because they are, in their own fields, at the absolute pinnacle of what human beings can achieve. And placing them in the same creative space as Jungkook is a statement about the standard he sets for himself and the artistic conversations he chooses to enter. Let's start with Suju Park. Because if you don't already know who she is, you need to, and not just in the context of this MV. Suju Park is a South Korean American model who has built one of the most significant careers in the history of global fashion. She has walked for Chanel. She has appeared on the covers of multiple editions of Vogue. She has worked with the biggest names in the industry across multiple decades. But what makes her a genuinely historic figure, what elevates her beyond simply being an incredibly successful model, is her appointment as the first Asian global spokesperson for L'Oreal. Let that land for a second. The first Asian global spokesperson for one of the most powerful beauty brands on the planet. In an industry that has historically operated with a very narrow, very Eurocentric definition of what beauty looks like at the global level, that appointment represented something far bigger than a brand deal. It was a statement about whose face the world's most powerful beauty company believed deserved to be seen universally. It was a crack in a ceiling that had been holding for a very long time. And the person who made that crack was Suju Park, through talent, through perseverance, through a refusal to accept the limitations that the industry had historically placed on people who looked like her. She didn't just succeed within the system. She changed what the system thought was possible. When you understand the history and the symbolic weight that Suju Park carries with her into every frame she occupies, the decision to cast her in the Hooligan MV takes on a completely different dimension. She is not just a beautiful face in a music video. She is a living argument about representation, about breaking barriers, about existing at the highest level of the global industry on your own terms. And that argument resonates deeply with what BTS has been doing as artists across their entire career, existing at the highest level of the global music industry on their own terms, refusing the ceiling that the system tried to place on them, changing what the system thought was possible. There is a shared story there. A shared ethos. And the Hooligan MV brings that into the same frame, literally and figuratively. Now let's talk about Sohyun. Because honestly, when I first read about her being cast in this MV, I had to stop and just sit with it for a moment. Because the choice of Sohyun is not just a creative decision. It's a cultural declaration. Sohyun is a practitioner and instructor of Jiyamo, traditional Korean sword dance. And not just any practitioner. She is the kind of practitioner who wins first place at the World Martial Arts Olympia in 2017. For those who might not be familiar with Jiyamo, let me give you some context, because it matters enormously for understanding what the Hooligan MV is doing. Jiyamo is a traditional Korean performance art with roots stretching back centuries in Korean history and culture. It is a form that combines the discipline and precision of martial arts with the expressive language of dance. A practitioner of Jiyamo must have extraordinary physical control, spatial awareness, and the ability to make something that is fundamentally about danger, about a blade moving through space, read as simultaneously breathtaking and beautiful. It is an art form that demands total commitment. Total mastery. There is no casual Jiyamo. There is no halfway Jiyamo. You either have dedicated your life to it or you haven't. And Sohyun has. Winning first place at a world-level martial arts competition in Jiyamo is the kind of achievement that represents years, likely decades, of discipline, of sacrifice, of cultural stewardship. It means you have taken a centuries-old Korean art form and brought it to its absolute technical peak in front of international judges who are evaluating it by the most rigorous standards in the world. That is what Sohyun brings into the Hooligan MV when she appears in that industrial landscape, in black, with that blade, moving with a precision and a gravity that makes every other element of the frame hold its breath around her. And this is where the conceptual genius of the Hooligan MV becomes most visible. Because the decision to bring Jiyamo into this MV is not random. It is directly connected to what the Arirang album is doing at the deepest level. Think about it. Arirang, the album title itself, is the name of one of Korea's most iconic and culturally significant folk songs. A song with hundreds of regional variations, sung across centuries and continents, included in UNESCO's list of intangible cultural heritage. By naming their comeback album Arirang, BTS was making a very deliberate statement about cultural roots. About what it means to be Korean artists at the peak of global influence. About the relationship between where you come from and where you're going. And the Hooligan MV, with its inclusion of Jiyamo, another deeply rooted Korean cultural art form, extends that statement into the visual dimension. It says, the roots are not something we left behind. The roots are something we carry into everything we do, even when everything we do is reaching a global audience of millions. This is not pastiche. This is not tourism. This is not the kind of superficial engagement with cultural heritage that often makes you cringe when you see it in a mainstream context. This is genuine dialogue. And it works precisely because the person performing the Jiyamo is Sohyun, the real thing, at the highest possible level. You cannot fake that. You cannot get close to it with a lesser choice. The fact that they went to a world champion says everything about the seriousness of the intention behind this creative decision. Now, with all of that context in place, with Suju Park and her history on one side, and Sohyun and her mastery on the other, let's talk about Jungkook. Because placing him in this creative space, making him the center of this MV, is itself a statement. And the statement is, this is the level he operates at. This is the standard he holds himself to. This is the conversation he chooses to enter. Jungkook joined Big Hit Entertainment at 15 years old, the youngest of the BTS members, recruited at an age when most people are still figuring out what they want to be. He trained under intense pressure, learning to sing and dance and perform at a professional level while simultaneously growing up in an environment where the expectations were always extraordinarily high. And from the very beginning, even as a teenager, there was something in him that set him apart. Not just talent was everywhere in that training environment. But a specific quality of commitment. A refusal to be satisfied with good enough. A drive to keep going, keep refining, keep pushing, that was evident to everyone around him from the earliest days. The BTS members themselves have talked about it many times over the years. About how Jungkook would practice long after others had stopped. About how he held himself to standards that sometimes even exceeded what was being asked of him by the team. About how that commitment was both inspiring and, at times, a source of real pressure for him, because the gap between where he was and where he wanted to be always felt, to him, like it needed to be closed. That quality, that restless, unrelenting drive toward mastery, is the foundation of everything he has become. And what he has become, by 2026, is something that even those of us who have been watching closely were not fully prepared for. The solo chapter of his career, the 2023 album Golden, the global success of Standing Next to You, the international touring that followed, proved that he could occupy the center of the frame entirely on his own, without the architecture of the group around him, and generate his own gravity. That was a significant thing to prove. Because there are artists who are extraordinary within a group context but struggle to translate that into a solo presence. Jungkook did not struggle. He stepped into the solo frame and filled it completely. Then came the military service. 2 years out of the entertainment world. 2 years of a different kind of life, a different kind of pressure, a different relationship with time and with himself. And by his own account, those 2 years changed him in ways that are still unfolding. They gave him, he has said, a new understanding of why he does this. A deeper relationship with the music. A clearer sense of what he wants his art to do in the world. That clarity is not a small thing. That clarity is the difference between someone who performs well and someone who communicates something real every time they step in front of a camera or onto a stage. And in the Hooligan MV, you can feel that clarity in every frame he's in. There is a quality in the way Jungkook occupies his space in this MV that can only be described as settled. Not relaxed, settled. Deeply rooted in himself. Not performing confidence, not projecting an image of strength, but simply being. Being fully present, fully committed to the artistic language of the MV, fully trusting of the creative choices being made around him. That settledness is something you cannot manufacture. It comes from having actually lived through something. From having gone away, and come back knowing more about who you are than you did before you left. The visual language of the Hooligan MV itself is worth examining in detail, because every element of it is intentional. The split aesthetic, grid format stills and video clips of the BTS members on one side, sweeping black and white cinematic footage on the other, is a structural choice that mirrors the thematic tension of the song. Hooligan is a track about duality. About control and chaos existing in the same space. About beauty and danger being inseparable. The visual split reinforces that duality in a way that works before you've even processed a single lyric. You feel the tension in the composition. That is sophisticated visual storytelling. That is the work of a creative team and of artists who are not making choices arbitrarily but building a coherent argument through every visual element at their disposal. The grid of member footage establishes the group identity within the world of the song. Dark palette, architectural styling, confrontational energy mixed with moments of more interior, introspective expression. Each member brings their own distinct quality to that shared visual language. And Jungkook's quality in those frames is one of absolute, unhurried certainty. He is not trying to dominate the frame. He simply does, because he cannot not. Because that's what genuine presence does, it doesn't announce itself. It simply exists, and everything around it adjusts. The black and white footage of Sohyun performing Jiamu in the industrial landscape is doing something different, and it's doing it beautifully. The choice to shoot that footage in black and white is not just an aesthetic preference, it's a temporal decision. It places the Jiamu performance in a visual register that feels timeless. That doesn't belong to any particular decade or trend cycle. It says, this art form exists outside of the contemporary. It belongs to a different order of things. A deeper order. And by creating a visual dialogue between the contemporary world of the group footage and the timeless world of Sohyun's performance, the Hooligan MV is making a larger argument about where BTS stands in the cultural landscape right now. It is saying that the contemporary and the deeply rooted can exist in the same breath. Can speak to each other. Can create something neither could create alone. For Indonesian army watching this, that argument resonates in a very specific way. Because the relationship between contemporary popular culture and traditional cultural heritage is a live conversation in our own cultural context too. How do you honor where you come from while fully inhabiting where you are? How do you bring the traditional into dialogue with the contemporary without flattening either one? The Hooligan MV offers a model for how that can be done with real integrity. And watching BTS do it, watching Jungkook stand in the same creative space as a Jimin world champion, watching the industrial landscape of the MV hold both a global supermodel and a centuries-old Korean art form is genuinely instructive, beyond just being beautiful to watch. The reaction from fans and cultural observers after the Hooligan MV dropped reflected exactly how many layers this MV is operating on. Within hours, the conversation was already moving beyond the surface, beyond how incredible Jungkook looked, beyond the aesthetics of the styling and the cinematography. People were asking about Suju Park's history. People were looking up Jimin, watching videos of Sohyun performing, learning about the World Martial Arts Olympia. People were making connections between the MV's visual choices and the Arirang album's broader cultural argument. These are the conversations that happen around work that is doing something real. Around work that opens doors rather than closing them. Around work that makes its audience smarter and more curious just by encountering it. And within the ARMY community specifically, there was a particular kind of pride in that reaction. Because this is what we've always known BTS was capable of. Work that operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Work that rewards attention, that expands imagination, that refuses to be simply consumed and forgotten. The Hooligan MV is not the kind of thing you watch once and move on. It's the kind of thing you come back to. It's the kind of thing that keeps giving you something new every time you look at it closely. That quality, the quality of inexhaustibility, is one of the rarest and most valuable things an artwork can have. And the Hooligan MV has it. As the Arirang World Tour begins on April 9, 2026 in Goyang, and as this era continues to unfold, the Hooligan MV stands as one of its clearest and most powerful artistic statements. It tells you what this era is actually about. Not just about 7 extraordinary artists returning to the stage. Not just about chart numbers and streaming records and sold-out stadiums, though all of those things are real and significant. It's about what happens when artists who have been through everything, the highs and the impossible pressure of them, the time away, the growth that only happens in the silence, come back with the full weight of everything they've experienced behind every creative decision they make. It's about art made from a place of complete maturity, complete seriousness, and complete commitment to doing something that matters. Jungkook in the Hooligan MV, flanked by a supermodel who broke barriers across an entire global industry and a sword dance champion who devoted her life to mastering one of Korea's most ancient and significant art forms, is one of the single most powerful images of what that maturity looks like in practice. It says, I know the standard. I hold myself to it. And I hold every creative choice I make to it. That is Jungkook's standard in the Arirang era. That is what the Hooligan MV is showing us. And watching it is watching what happens when that standard is fully, unapologetically, magnificently realized. The golden magne has become the golden artist. And all of us, every army watching from every corner of the world, in every language, at every hour, we are watching that transformation complete itself in real time. We are the witnesses of it. And we will not forget what we saw. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end, Army. It genuinely means everything to me. If this gave you something to think about, something to feel, or just a deeper appreciation for the incredible level of craft and intention that went into the Hooligan MV, please give this video a like, leave a comment telling me which part hit you the hardest, and subscribe if you haven't already. The Arirang era is giving us so much to talk about, and I want to make sure you're here for every single conversation. See you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, Army.